The village of Aragua lay hidden between the arms of the Brazilian rainforest, a place where the trees swallowed sound and the rivers carried secrets. For Kitanna and her family, it was home. They lived in a single-room wooden shack with a rusted tin roof, 5 souls bound by hunger and resilience. Her mother stitched torn clothes for neighbors, her father fished when he could, and her 3 brothers scavenged the forest for fruits to fill their stomachs. Kitanna was the youngest, fragile in appearance but carrying something vast inside her. From the moment she could speak, her voice bent the world. When she sang, even the chatter of cicadas dulled, and the restless wind paused as though the earth itself strained to listen. People often whispered that her voice did not belong to her. It belonged to the hollow spaces of the forest, to something ancient that had chosen her as its vessel. At dusk, villagers would gather at the riverbank. With no instruments, no microphones, no stage, Kitanna would simply stand on the grass barefoot, her thin dress brushing her knees, and she would open her mouth. The first note always came like a sigh, soft as smoke, but then it grew, expanding until it seemed impossible that such sound came from a human throat. It was not beauty alone that kept the crowd transfixed, it was presence. Her song filled every crevice, echoed against the wooden walls of homes, slid across the river surface and returned with doubled strength. People claimed her voice lived inside their skulls long after she stopped, like a haunting they did not want to be free of. Some knelt and prayed when she sang. Some wept without knowing why. One evening, as the pink skies folded into deep indigo, a stranger stood among the villagers. Rigo, a tourist from New York City, tall and lean with a notebook always in his hand. He had come to study the dialects of the locals, fascinated by how sound shaped culture. But what he witnessed that evening shook him beyond words. Kitanna stepped into the clearing barefoot, her dark curls catching the dying light. The murmurs of the crowd died instantly. She inhaled slowly, her eyes half closed, and when she began to sing, Rigo felt something ripple through his chest like a hand reaching into his lungs. The note rose, clear, sharp, then endless. The night thickened around them. Even the children who usually fidgeted sat with open mouths. Rigo's pen slipped from his fingers. His heartbeat raced. He swore he felt the ground itself hum, as though her voice dug into the roots of the trees and pulled life upward. His camera phone trembled in his grasp as he pressed record. Through the screen, the scene looked unreal, the villagers frozen in awe, the air vibrating with an invisible weight, Kitanna's body outlined faintly in a glow the lens could barely capture. He thought it a trick of light, but the shiver in his spine told him otherwise. When the song ended, silence fell. No claps, no cheers, just stunned stillness. Then, as if waking from a trance, the villagers erupted in whistles, shouts, ululations of joy. Rigo remained frozen. His ears rang with echoes that refused to fade. It was not normal music, he knew that much. That night, he returned to his lodge, unable to sleep. He replayed the recording over and over. On the screen, her voice was powerful, yes, but it was what the video did that horrified him. Shadows behind Kitanna seemed to twitch unnaturally, stretching longer than the firelight should allow. Faces in the crowd blurred, then sharpened again. Once, when he slowed the playback, he swore he heard whispers threaded beneath her singing, whispers in a language he did not understand. Rigo's hands trembled as he shut the phone off. He told himself it was fatigue, a trick of the jungle night. And yet, deep down, he knew he had captured something more than a performance. Something had entered his camera. Something that wanted to be carried far beyond the jungle. Rigo left Brazil with more than souvenirs. He left with a recording that gnawed at his sanity. On the flight back to New York, he replayed it in his headphones, unable to resist. Each listen left him unsettled. He noticed things he had missed before, faint sobs hidden under long notes, a low groan at the very edge of human hearing. Once, he pulled the earbuds out in panic, sure that someone had whispered his name. Passengers turned to glare at him, but he swore he had not imagined it. Back in his cramped Manhattan apartment, the city's noise failed to drown out Kitanna's echo. Rigo knew exactly what to do with it. He had studied languages, not music, but he had contacts, people who owed him favors. Among them was Victor Armand, a Hollywood producer with a reputation for discovering voices no one else dared to touch. Victor listened in his studio, lounging in a leather chair, cigar smoke curling in the air. The recording played once, then twice. His face remained unreadable. But when it ended, he leaned forward, elbows on knees, eyes sharp as razors. "Where did you find her?" he asked. "A village in northern Brazil," Rigo replied cautiously. Victor smiled, slow and dangerous. "Then we bring her here. I don't care what it costs." The offer came quickly. For Kitanna, it felt like stepping into a dream. One of those dreams she had once whispered to her brothers as they lay on mats, staring at the cracked ceiling of their shack. A chance to leave poverty behind. A chance to send money home to lift them all into a new life. When the plane touched down in Los Angeles, Kitanna pressed her face against the window. The sprawl of lights below looked like scattered stars brought down to earth. She had never seen so much brightness. Limousines, velvet ropes, makeup artists who called her darling, as if they had known her all her life. It was dizzying, intoxicating. Victor welcomed her with the charm of a king ushering in his heir. He showed her mansions, signed contracts with elegant pens, and promised her that soon the world would bow to her voice. Kitanna believed him. How could she not? Her first recording session was unlike anything she had imagined. The studio was state-of-the-art, walls lined with soundproofing foam, microphones gleaming under dim lights. But when she opened her mouth to sing, she needed none of it. Her voice filled the room like liquid metal, sharp and pure. Engineers stared wide-eyed at their monitors. Victor's smile widened. "You'll own the world," he whispered under his breath, though Kitanna was too lost in her own singing to hear. That night, in her luxury apartment overlooking the glowing sprawl of Los Angeles, Kitanna dreamed. She stood barefoot in a dark corridor, walls slick with something warm. A paper lay on the floor before her, parchment, yellowed and waiting. A knife gleamed at her feet. Without thinking, she bent down, picked it up, and pressed the blade against her brother's arm. He did not scream. His eyes only watched her, wide and resigned, as the blood spilled down. She dipped her fingers into it, dragged the crimson across the paper, and signed her name. The ink hissed as if alive. The paper pulsed beneath her touch. Kitanna woke with a jolt, sweat drenching her nightgown, her throat dry. She told herself it was only a dream. A terrible, vivid dream. But when she glanced at her reflection in the glass wall, she thought she saw red smears across her fingers. She blinked and they were gone. The next morning, her debut single was released. Within hours, it soared to the top of the charts. Millions streamed it, enthralled, unable to stop playing it. Across the world, her name became a chant, a rising storm. Kitanna, Kitanna, Kitanna. But as her fame climbed, tragedy struck home. Her eldest brother, João, was found dead by the river where she once sang for the villagers. The villagers whispered of drowning, though his lungs were dry. Some said he had simply collapsed mid-step, eyes staring at nothing. Others swore they heard singing in the forest the night before, a song no human should have sung. The news reached Kitanna during a glamorous photo shoot. She collapsed against the backdrop, tears streaking her painted face. Her handlers rushed to her, but Victor only watched from the corner of the room, eyes glinting like polished stone. In her grief, Kitanna clung to reason. It was coincidence, she told herself. Coincidence. Yet, in the pit of her stomach, a shadow of fear grew. The dream. The song. The death. And the echo of her own voice seemed to follow her, long after she fell silent. Fame arrived like a flood, unstoppable and merciless. Within a year, Kitanna's face gleamed from billboards in New York, London, Paris. Her voice played from radios in endless loops, threading itself into malls, car stereos, even children's lullabies. Wherever she traveled, crowds surged forward, screaming her name, desperate to touch her, to be near the miracle of her sound. And yet, with each triumph, shadows followed. Her second single, released to deafening anticipation, hit the airwaves like fire. Within days, it climbed higher than the first, solidifying her as the voice of a generation. But that same week, her second brother, Paulo, was found lifeless in his sleep. No wounds, no struggle. Just a slack face, eyes wide as though he had glimpsed something unspeakable in his final breath. Kitanna screamed when she heard. The studio walls rattled as she smashed a mirror, blood streaking her palms. Victor was there in minutes, his hand cold on her shoulder, his voice dripping with poison-coated comfort. "Pain is the price of greatness, darling," he whispered. "Legends are not built on ease. They are carved from blood." His words chilled her more than her brother's death. But when she looked into his eyes, glassy and reptilian in the dim studio light, she saw no grief, only hunger. The dreams grew worse. In one, she stood before a sea of faceless fans, microphone in hand. But when she opened her mouth, no song came, only a shriek, metallic and grinding. The crowd clutched their ears, blood seeping between their fingers, but they did not flee. They dropped one by one, writhing, until the arena was filled with bodies twitching on the floor. And still she sang. In another, she wandered a cathedral drenched in crimson light. At the altar stood Victor, draped in robes of black and gold, chanting words that split the air like knives. Around him knelt masked figures, their faces painted with the symbols of serpents. She saw her brothers laid upon the steps, their throats cut, their blood flowing into bowls. Victor dipped his fingers into the liquid and smeared it across her forehead, whispering, "Your voice belongs to us." She woke gasping, throat raw as though she had been singing all night. Her sheets were damp with sweat and sometimes, she swore, with faint spots of red. Her third single, a haunting ballad, made her the most streamed artist on earth. Her concerts filled stadiums, oceans of light swaying to her voice. Fans cried, fainted, screamed until their throats bled. Critics called it a sound not of this world. Kitanna wanted to believe it was only a metaphor, but deep down she knew otherwise. The night of her triumph, another tragedy struck. Her youngest brother, Miguel, barely 12, was found drowned in a shallow basin of water no higher than his knees. His lips were blue, his eyes glazed. Villagers whispered that he had been lured, that he had heard a song from the forest and followed it. When the news reached her, Kitanna locked herself in her penthouse bathroom. She vomited until her ribs ached, clawing at her own skin as though trying to tear something out of herself. She begged the mirror, "Please stop. Please stop." But the reflection staring back at her only smiled faintly, lips moving in sync though she was silent. Victor's mask slipped further. He invited her one night to a private celebration, in the hills outside Los Angeles. The mansion was lit by torches, the air thick with incense and something metallic. Inside, shadows moved, men and women draped in crimson robes, their faces hidden behind animal masks. Wolves, serpents, ravens. At the center of the room stood a great symbol carved into the floor, drawn in salt and something darker that stained the marble. Kitanna's stomach turned. She realized with sudden clarity that these were not mere producers, agents, or investors. This was a coven. A coven bound by death. Victor stepped into the circle, his expensive suit replaced by ritual robes. The torches flared unnaturally bright as he raised his arms. "Our vessel," he proclaimed, his voice booming with unnatural resonance, "has brought us closer than ever to immortality. Through her the veil is pierced. Through her we drink eternity." The masked figures chanted in unison. The sound shook Kitanna to her bones. It was not Portuguese, not English, but something older, something that scraped against her mind like claws. She stumbled back, trembling, but Victor's eyes caught hers. "You cannot run, Kitanna," he said smoothly, as though he could read her thoughts. "Your voice is ours. You sing and the world bleeds for it. That is the covenant written long before you were born." Kitanna's blood turned to ice. For the first time she understood. Her voice was not simply a gift. It was a blade, sharpened by others, wielded for sacrifice. And with every note she was cutting her family apart. By then only one brother remained alive. Raphael, the middle child, stubborn, protective, the one who had always shielded her from bullies in the village. He was all she had left. And every night, her dreams showed him bleeding at her feet. Kitanna's fame soared, but the walls of her life closed in tighter. She could not stop singing. The machine of fame demanded it, the coven enforced it. Yet she knew, if she sang again Raphael would die. And Victor was waiting, smiling, feeding the fire that was consuming her. The world crowned Kitanna its queen of sound. Awards lined her shelves, journalists called her the divine echo, and presidents requested her presence at ceremonies. But inside she was rotting. Her eyes grew hollow, her laughter sounded rehearsed. She had stopped calling her family because the silence on the other end of the line hurt more than their voices. Only Raphael remained, her last tether to the life before all this, and she guarded him from afar with the desperation of a dying mother. But dreams gave her no peace. In them she saw Raphael bound to an altar, his body pale, his mouth open in a silent scream. Victor stood over him with the knife, chanting in a voice that shook the ground. Always Kitanna was there too, watching, singing against her will, her voice feeding the ritual. She woke with bruises on her wrists where ropes had dug in during the dream, though no one had tied her. It was after one such night that she first saw him, a face she recognized from long ago. She had just finished a performance in Rio de Janeiro, thousands chanting her name. Backstage, through the chaos of reporters and flashing cameras, a man pushed forward. His clothes were simple, his eyes burning with urgency. Kitanna froze, the shape of his face was familiar. "Mateus?" she whispered. He nodded. He had been a boy from her village, only a few years older, who used to carry baskets of fish past her house. His family had moved when she was still young. Yet here he was, grown, weathered, staring at her as though seeing a ghost. "You're in danger," he said in a low voice, urgent. Your songs, they are killing your blood. I've seen it before. You need to seek the voodoo priest in Belém. He will tell you the truth. Kitanna trembled. For years she had carried the curse alone, choking on her suspicions. To hear someone else speak it aloud cracked her open. She clutched his arm, desperate. Please help me. Mateus only pressed a small piece of paper into her hand, an address scrawled in haste. Go before it's too late. Belém was a city of shadows, its narrow streets heavy with humidity and old whispers. Kitanna traveled alone, disguised under a hood, far from the bright stages of her career. The address led her to a crumbling house at the edge of the city. Candles flickered inside, their smoke coiling through cracked windows. The voodoo priest awaited her. He was tall, thin, his eyes deep pools of darkness. His smile stretched unnaturally wide as he welcomed her. Ah, the songbird arrives. Kitanna fell to her knees before him, desperation breaking her voice. Please tell me why my family is dying. Tell me what curse this is. The priest circled her slowly, fingers trailing the air as if tasting the sound of her breath. Your voice is a gate, child. Long before you were born, your ancestors were bound by covenant. Every note you release feeds the void. Every triumph demands blood. Such power cannot exist freely, it must be fed. Her body shook with sobs. Then break it. Please break it. The priest leaned down, his lips brushing her ear. Some covenants cannot be broken. Something in his tone curdled her stomach. His voice carried the same serpentine rhythm she had heard in Victor's chanting. She lifted her head, her eyes narrowing. And there, faint but undeniable, on the inside of his wrist was the same black serpent mark she had seen carved into the marble floor of Victor's ritual circle. Her blood ran cold. Mateus found her later that night, trembling in an alley, her hands stained with candle wax and fear. She told him everything, every word the priest had spoken. He listened, jaw clenched, until she showed him the mark. His face hardened. They are the same, he said flatly. The priest and your producer, they are of the same coven. They have used you as a vessel, Kitanna. Your fame, your songs, your voice, it is all a machine to draw blood for their rituals. Your brothers did not die by chance. They were taken. The world tilted beneath her feet. Every applause, every stage, every diamond dress she had worn, bought with her family's blood. She retched against the wall while burning her throat. Mateus gripped her shoulders. You can't keep singing for them. You must turn it against them. How? She sobbed. His eyes burned with grim resolve. Your voice destroys as much as it exalts. They think they own it, but you can make it theirs undoing. Her rebellion began in silence. For weeks, she refused new recordings, refused interviews, claiming exhaustion. Victor grew impatient, but she pretended obedience. Beneath the glittering mask of fame, she planned. The next performance would be her last, and it would not belong to them. The night arrived. A stadium in Los Angeles, 50,000 faces waiting, millions more watching through screens. She walked onto the stage in a gown of black, her hair wild, her eyes burning with secret fire. The crowd roared. Victor watched from the shadows of the wings, his smile a serpent's coil. The voodoo priest was there too, robed in crimson, his hands clasped. The coven had gathered in the audience, hidden among ordinary fans, waiting to drink from her voice again. Kitanna lifted the microphone, her heart hammering. She saw Mateus in the front row, his eyes locked on hers, steadying her. She knew what she had to do. Her rebellion would not come with weapons, but with the one thing they had stolen from her, the power of her song. She drew in breath, deeper than ever before, and prepared to unleash the voice that could crown or kill. In the days leading up to the concert, Kitanna's life turned into a waking nightmare. Everywhere she went, sound betrayed her. The hum of an elevator turned into whispers calling her name. The applause of fans dissolved into screams of agony only she could hear. Even silence was not safe. When she pressed her hands over her ears at night, she swore she could hear faint breathing inside her skull, as if her own voice had crawled inside her head and refused to leave. Sleep became impossible. The dreams bled into waking hours. One night, as she rehearsed alone in her penthouse, her reflection in the glass wall moved differently from her body. When she turned away, it lingered, still staring. Its lips moved without sound. Then, faintly, her own voice came from the glass, layered with dozens of others, men, women, children, all screaming in chorus through her likeness. She smashed the glass, cutting her palms, but even as blood dripped to the floor, she heard the echo, "You are ours." Another night, she woke to find her bed soaked. For a panicked moment, she thought it was sweat, until the stench hit her. Thick, metallic. What? She leapt up, screaming, only for the sheets to appear pristine under the bathroom light. But the smell lingered, clinging to her nostrils long after. Victor tightened his grip. He appeared in her dressing room uninvited, standing too close, his reflection in the mirror showing him smiling even when his face was stone. "The world is addicted to you," he whispered. "You could kill them all with a whisper and they would still beg for more. That is power, Kitanna. And you will not waste it." She wanted to scream, but her throat locked. It felt as though invisible hands gripped her vocal cords, squeezing. Only when he left did she collapse to the floor, choking on air. Worse were the accidents. During a sound check, the stage lights flickered and exploded, showering her with sparks. She staggered, covering her face, but the crew swore no wires had malfunctioned. Another time as she drove alone, the radio switched itself on. Her own song played, warped and slow, the lyrics slurred into a guttural chant she had never sung. The car locked itself, the window sealing. Her voice, her own yet not hers, filled the cabin, until she swerved onto the curb and slammed the door open by force. Mateus found her hours later, curled on the sidewalk, rocking herself and whispering, "It won't stop. It won't stop." As the concert drew near, the dreams reached a crescendo. She saw Raphael every night now, her last brother. Always tied, always bleeding, always reaching for her with eyes filled not with anger but with sorrow. "Why did you leave me? Why did you sing?" Once, she woke with a scream and rushed to call him. But the line was dead. Only static answered, and deep inside the static, she swore she heard Victor's laughter. Kitanna clutched the phone to her chest and collapsed, sobbing. She understood now that she was trapped in a cage woven not of steel but of sound. Her own voice, the very thing that had lifted her from poverty, was the blade that cut her family down. When the night of the performance arrived, Kitanna was no longer the girl Rigo had once filmed by the riverbank. Her skin was pale, stretched thin over her bones. Her eyes were ringed in darkness, her lips cracked. But when she stepped onto the stage, the crowd still roared as though beholding a goddess. They did not see the horror in her trembling hands. They did not hear the voices gnawing at the edges of her mind. But Victor saw. And the voodoo priest, cloaked in crimson, saw. Both smiled, their hunger sharp as knives. Kitanna gripped the microphone. She could feel her ancestors watching, feel Raphael's life hanging by a thread, feel the weight of all the blood already spilled. The coven thought they owned her. But she had decided, tonight her voice would not belong to them. It would belong to the darkness that made it. The arena lights dimmed. Thousands of fans screamed her name, their voices crashing like waves against the stage. The air was electric, pulsing with anticipation. Cameras flashed. Screens glowed. The world was waiting to be swallowed by her song. Victor stood in the wings, his face a mask of victory. Beside him, the voodoo priest raised a goblet of black liquid, whispering incantations that twisted around the arena like unseen serpents. Kitanna stepped into the spotlight. Her hands shook. Her chest rose and fell like a drumbeat. She could feel Raphael's heartbeat somewhere out there, weak, faltering, fading. This was it. If she sang the way they demanded, Raphael would be next. If she refused, she would be destroyed. Her lips touched the microphone. For a moment, silence. Then she opened her mouth. But this time, her voice did not rise as a song of beauty. It erupted as a scream. A sound not meant for human ears. The very walls trembled. Screens shattered. Fans clutched their hats, blood trickling from their noses. The ground shook as if the earth itself recoiled. The priest staggered, his goblet spilling black ichor onto the stage. Victor fell to his knees, his grin twisting into terror. "No, no. This is not what we gave you." Kitanna's scream became something more, an echo that multiplied into thousands of voices, all the spirits of her family, of those who had been sacrificed for her rise. They filled the arena, their wails clawing at the walls, rattling bones, tearing through flesh. Her voice turned the coven's power back on itself. The priest's eyes burst, his body collapsing in convulsions. Victor's skin peeled as though the sound stripped him down to bone, his own laughter consumed by the chorus of the dead. And still, Kitanna screamed. Her fans dropped, lifeless, their adoration silenced. The arena was a graveyard of bodies, lit only by sparking wires and trembling light. In the middle of the ruin, Raphael appeared. Not in chains, not in blood, but standing, frail, ghostly pale, yet alive. His lips moved, "Sister." Her scream faltered. Tears burned her face. She tried to run to him, but the sound she had unleashed was now out of her control. It coiled around her throat, forcing her mouth open, dragging more power out of her than her body could bear. Raphael reached toward her, but as their fingers almost touched, his form flickered like static on a dying screen, and vanished. Kitanna collapsed, choking, her voice shredding itself out of her lungs. The arena was silent now. Completely silent. No fans. No priest. No victor. No brother. Just her. She rose to her knees, blood dripping from her lips. The microphone lay twisted, melted at her feet. The spotlight still burned, casting her shadow across the empty seats. For a moment she thought it was over. Then she heard it, applause. Slow. Echoing. Coming from the dark beyond the lights. She squinted, trembling. And there, in the farthest row of the arena, sat a figure. Cloaked. So. Hands clapping in mockery. The sound grew louder, multiplying until it filled the space again as though thousands were still applauding. Her voice was supposed to free her. Instead it had opened a door. Kitanna fell to the stage, screaming one last time, not in song but in pure terror. The echo carried, stretching far beyond the arena, into the streets of Los Angeles, into the night sky, into the world. And then silence. The lights cut. The story ended. But somewhere in the silence, her echo still lingered. People far away, in Brazil, in New York, in deserts and cities, suddenly stopping, looking around as though they hear a faint singing. Kitanna's rebellion might have accidentally unleashed her voice onto the entire world.